There, it is Wednesday morning. If you look at how it's spelled, it's very hard to say that, but there it is, Wednesday morning. And it is once again time for relaxing, painting, sanding, grumbling, searching, rooting through boxes with Dice and Dungeons. And the work continues on the Apollo stack. Okay, this really cool model that, there's just this base. There's that. And then there's the module that contains the lunar excursion module, this little storage compartment there. And then the service module and the command module and the escape tower. And the model is fairly detailed. It's not like super detailed in the scheme of things, but I'd say it's pretty nice. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just admit we were playing a new game last night and just learning how to play it, and it went on and on and on and on, and I got a couple hours less sleep than usual, which means that I'm kind of tired. And so if I just start mumbling or muttering or not saying words or things of that sort, it's just because I'm tired. And that's my excuse. So I do have an excuse, but it was a lot of fun. We had a really good game night. It was hard to get started, on the game, but then once we got going and figured out how to play it and how the turns worked, it became more interesting. So we'll probably play it some more, but maybe not until, earlier this morning. Okay, yeah, I'm just checking to see that the chat screen does seem to be working. It looks to be online. It looks to be recording. The music is not playing because we still haven't gotten word that the issue with the Nakarada music has been resolved. So the background music isn't there, but this is the thing I'm working on. The escape tower is essentially done. All I need to do is install these little doors at the very top, which will actually be kind of challenging because the contact points are very, very tiny, okay, and not easy to reach in a sense because it's just not lined up nicely. Anyway, the plan for today is actually to get those on one way or another. I decided not to use model cement because it'll mar the paint, and this came out, B+ kind of painting job. So I don't want to mar it. So I'm going to end up, I think, trying contact cement, which is a little bit. It's not it grabs onto things really well. Okay, I used it for the lattice work, for example, down here. The I don't know why I keep calling it that. Like scaffolding, basically at the base of the escape tower. You'll see it later when I start messing around with these doors. It is really like very jelly-like, it's globby, and thick. So it tends to show, but it allows me to let these things grip and manipulate for a little while. The only other thing that kind of does that is epoxy. But the thing about the contact cement is that if it doesn't work, before it sets, I can take it off and try something else. The thing I'm working on now is the service module. And under here, ta-da, is a whole tray full of parts for the exterior of the service module. These got primed yesterday. There's a lot of them, and what I'll be doing today is test fitting them to see what kind of order they need to be painted. And over there, I might as well show this to you because it's it's stuff that's actually been accomplished. This is the box of parts that are done, and these bits, all of these bits here, are components of the service module. Okay. The hydrogen tank, the oxygen tanks, little tanks for the fuel cells, a tiny little spot down there that you can barely see that is a helium tank. And then this thing, I need to fix this. This is the high gain antenna that has been broken. So let me put this bit back in here so it doesn't wander off. This is the bracket for the high gain antenna. But as you can see, it is in two pieces instead of one. It's hard to see white on white, right? But it is. And that needs to be put together and then painted. So I'm going to take that out because that's one of the first things I'm going to try to work on. These bits here are the doors. And just so that you can see what I'm talking about, this little tab here, and this little tab here, this point of this tab, and the point of this tab, you can see how tiny those are. Those are the contact points for holding this entire thing onto the escape tower. And somehow or other, those need to stick and hold in place. And so that'll be a challenge. It's the last bit on the escape tower. Once those are done, that'll be done. This is a fuel sump tank. Anyway, these bits here there's this panel on the service module that opens up, and these bits here appear on the inside of it so that it looks like you're looking at something inside the service module. So there they are. Parts is parts. And I'll put those aside until I need them. Okay, the place I put them doesn't seem to exist any longer. Space continuum warp. This used to be a parts box, and now it's my toolbox. It got changed around because it just did. Little needle files and pokey things and tweezers and stuff. Okay, so the plan today is fix this, clean it up a little bit, and then finish painting it so that it will be done. This will then be done as well. Test fit the internal components of the service module, which I'll be showing you on the instruction sheet in a little bit. All of these bits here. Make some decisions about the order in which they'll be painted, because there's 1, 2, 3, probably 4 different base colors that go on these. And then some of them have a lot of detail on them, like this, where there's some conduits and stuff that show. And then after these are base coated, those will have to be painted, hopefully successfully. Not today because they're not painted, but there'll be some spray painting happening. So that is this tray of stuff. Okay, and this needs to be fixed, so I'll just keep this out. That really just needs to be done. I keep forgetting about it. Let me show to you the things that I'm working on. Okay, this is the without words instruction manual, other than some things that label what they are. So these are the internal components I showed you in the box before. That's the tank. And you can see how they all go into this part of the service module after it's put together. Okay. And then this is the panel that opens up and little bits go on here. I need to find the hinge. This is the hinge that's attached to that attaches to this, that supposedly lets it open and close. We'll see how that works. Okay. I need to find that. And then there's the reaction control jets that control the attitude of the entire stack. Okay, and these are mounted on the outside of the service module. Tiny little pieces that I have not found yet. So I need to go into the box and find this hinge piece and attach it to that. That'll get attached today before the thing is painted, because it has to be painted along with everything else. This is done, and then eventually this whole thing comes together and looks like this. Great, huh? Yeah. So fix the high gain antenna, find all the little bits for the reaction control jets, and probably will end up having to do a fair amount of sanding because they always have flaws on them. Okay. Test fit all of this stuff. Check the color chart. Yep. Which is not always too terribly helpful. Yeah, just that kind of stuff. So the other thing, the miscellaneous thing today is who is not on, okay, not in chat, very disappointing, says that I always end up spending a half an hour before I even find my brushes. Well, the brushes have all piled up. There's like 15 of them here, and I use about 4 of them. Some of them just need to be thrown away. Some of them need to be taken care of. And I've got a couple of X-Acto knives. Anyway, at some point during the stream, I'm going to pull all of this stuff over here and sort it out. And you're going to get to watch relaxing sorting out brushes with Dyson Dungeons. Okay, this needs to be fit back together. This is a clean fracture, as they say, I guess. And then somehow kept in line. This means like holding it steady for 5 minutes or something absurd. I'm not sure. I'm going to use the kind of model cement that more likely than not melts the plastic to get a weld. And it might, create like a blob of melted plastic as this is put together that I can carefully sand off. The most difficult part of this is keeping it aligned, because I can't just lay it down. Okay, this is raised up higher than this, and so if I just laid it down, it wouldn't lay flat. So actually I'm going to play around with that a little bit. If I lay it down like this, it would just droop. So if I'm really lucky, and I might be, I can find something that is just as thick as the space between the bottom of this and this. Let's find out if I'm going to be lucky. Going to work with is a little piece of some pieces of cardboard. Sometimes these things just work out, where you say, I really need something into which I can prop this that is exactly the right thickness. And then you just reach over to the little pile of cardboard that's sitting there, okay? And miracle of miracles, it turns out to be just right. Sometimes it doesn't, but how to find out. So instead of letting it sit on here, which is getting kind of warpy and stuff, put it on a nice piece, clean piece of cardboard. And this is way bigger than I need. Let's see what happens. It's a little bit too thick. Just a little bit too thick. But it's on the right track. What I'm going to do here, this part is peeling off. Okay. Peeling off the bottom of the corrugated part. There's actually, some chance that might work. Need the tweezers. Need to clean up. This is something that could end up working. Maybe not. I don't know. So that got rid of little bitty fractions of an inch. Boy, that's really, really close. So the solution to this might be not to lower this, but to raise this a little bit. See, what I'm doing is this is laying flat, and I want this to just go underneath that bit as I push it up to it. This and put it underneath it. Actually, I should use, where is it? Here. This is like, if you're doing like woodworking and stuff, building furniture and things, always people very frequently end up making what they call jigs. Okay. Which are things that hold parts in place. That came really close. So essentially what I'm doing here is trying to make a jig to hold parts just where I want them. There, that's actually it. So if I get this glued on, cemented on, hold it in place until it's, kind of gripping at least, and then set it like this, it should be pretty close to being straight, at least, the way this is looking right now, it'll be straight enough. Yeah, it'll be straight enough so that if it is a problem, it isn't going to show. Can't think of any better way to do this. Have any chance at all of succeeding? Okay, eventually it has to be done. So let's give this yeah, that was like the third time I sort of bumped into it. Each time I didn't knock it down. That time I did. So we're going to start with not terribly relaxing, but not too terribly stressful either, cementing these two bits together. Take these off so I can see up close a little bit better. And get some and put a dot on that. Dot on this side. bit. Liquid glue for plastics. Suitable puddle building. Good. I'm glad it's suitable for that because that's what it's being used for. May cause drowsiness or dizziness. Okay, another excuse besides not having had enough sleep last night is that the model cement might cause drowsiness or dizziness. Hopefully, I don't really want. Okay, well, that isn't what I wanted. See if they stick together. Yep. The cement is like getting onto the cardboard, so it is going to mar the surface, but I can polish that out very carefully. I will polish it out extremely carefully because I don't want to break it again, and it's fragile. This way. It seems to be adhering. I'm just looking at it to make sure it's straight as much as I can. Okay. Well, I hope that, like, sometime maybe after break, okay, I can come back to this, clean up the seam, just sand it down gently, really gently, and then paint it and have this bit be done as well. I need to put it in a safe place. And there isn't such a thing here. So I'll put it there, and that might be safe. Okay. Well, I didn't mess up anything else terribly much. I got little bits of junk and stuff all over the place, but that's typical, right? I'm going to do a little bit of cleaning up here. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm going to do this is kind of messy. It's got little paint splotches and stuff all over it. So I'm going to do a really sophisticated job of, oh my, it's under here. This is my sophisticated rehabilitation of the work surface. I'm going to take my cardboard and rotate it 180 degrees, and ta-da, it's clean. And highly sophisticated workbench. So know that I succeeded in getting model cement on something and maybe it's sticking together. Let me talk a little bit about Dyson Dungeons, which is a group of family and friends who play Dungeons and Dragons. And our Dungeons and Dragons show, which is what Dyson Dungeons is really all about, streams with a live chat on Sundays at 2. Okay. And if you can't catch it on Sundays at 2, that's Eastern Daylight Time at the moment. You are very welcome to come and watch it on YouTube or even as a podcast. And you should do that because it's really a lot of fun. It is a very good D&D show. And anybody who has been watching it can tell you that. Maybe they might even refer you to it or link you to it or something of that sort. I've got a handful of debris Okay, I've just been holding here, and I'm going to put it in the trash. And I even failed at that. Instead of very carefully dumping it into the trash can, I tossed it over, and some of it just was too light and it fluttered to the floor. I really can't get terribly much further until I find the rest of the parts. So what I'm going to be doing next is getting the very large box that this model comes in. It's even larger than the one for the submarine, which was quite large. I'm going to get the very large box and try to find. I can do though is show you the box top. Okay, this is the part that I've almost finished. The escape tower, everything except these things that look like little ears at the top. Those are the doors that I showed you that are somehow supposed to adhere to this and open up and reveal whatever that is, a little rocket thing. Okay. This escape tower is designed to pull the command module off of the stack if something down here starts going bad. Okay. So you don't want to be around it if some of this, especially way down at the bottom, like a booster rocket, starts going bad or something, and it pulls the command module away and then separates and the command module parachutes down. That's the idea. It never had to be used except in testing, which is really cool. So that was a very good thing. And the thing I'm working on now is the service module. And I'll show you the side of the box so you can see some of the detail. And then underneath that is the compartment in which the LEM is located. Right here, this bit folds down onto the rocket nozzle and folds out later. That's the part that I just re-cemented together. And then there's a lunar excursion module, which sits inside this compartment. And the really cool thing about this model is that it stacks like this, okay, but it all comes apart. So you can go 3, 2, 1, 0 and pretend that it's launched. And once it gets into the upper atmosphere, you can take the escape launch tower and remove it and say, I don't need this anymore because we're past the point where it would do any good. We're already high enough up so that if the capsule has to separate, it can parachute down. Okay. And then you can take this stack from here on up. This is gone. The command and the service module, remove it, rotate it like they did in space, 180 degrees, dock it the nose of this with the lunar excursion module, pull it out of its fairing, and then you've got the 1, 2, 3 module assembly that went to the moon. And then when you get to the moon with your model, okay, you get to take the lunar excursion module, the LEM, and separate it and land it on the moon. There's even simulated moon base. I'll show it to you. It's kind of funny. And then when you get down there, the LEM has a descent stage and an ascent stage, and they actually separate. And then you can take this back up and dock it onto the command module and put the astronauts all together, return to Earth, jettison that, and return on the. You can even take the nose of this off and reveal the parachutes. The only thing this is missing is the parachutes, which would have been very difficult to do, but I think kind of cool if they could have, that there would be like a parachute module where they could even be plastic parachutes, which would be really big and clumsy and dust collectors, but then you could have those be on the nose of that and have it land. Anyway, I really like this model because it's got all of the components, not just one or two like some models do. And it's pretty detailed. Oh yeah, I was going to show it to you. The size of the box are pretty big. This shows how the different components all come apart. Okay. This shows some of the detail that I need to do, the interior detail. Okay. Of the service module. That's the panel that opens up. And those are the conduits and things that I need to very carefully paint so that they look every bit as good as this. That should be fun. The command module, the little door on the command module actually opens up and you can see the astronauts inside. You can look in. Unfortunately, the interior of the command module is not very well detailed. I'm kind of disappointed in how that was. Yeah, that's the fairing here for the lunar excursion module, which is that. And then there's some other detailed stuff. Anyway, mine won't look as good as the one on the box, but it'll look okay. So this model includes some really cool things, like the lunar excursion module was wrapped in gold foil. And I thought, well, it would be cool to do that. I'll go find some, but it actually came with the kit. Which reminds me, one thing I need to do today. I have 3 colors of gold paint, but there's lots of other chunks of this thing that are painted gold. And I've got 3 kinds of gold paint, and I want to get the one that matches this. So maybe I'll do that after I find these parts. These are decals and the windows. The windows are not clear plastic in the traditional sense. They're like a strip of plastic that needs to be trimmed. This is the base. This is non-functional. It's just the base. But they gave us a moon base. Look at that. Isn't that funny? The lem sits on there. So at some point, this all needs to be painted in shades of gray. I might actually do that. This is supposed to be the ocean. Okay, those are supposed to be waves. This is supposed to be the ocean onto which the command module lands. We'll see. Anyway, the base is pretty big. These are the wings of the LEM storage area. Okay, these are bits of the LEM. You can see there's just kind of a mess in here. What I'm looking for are these. Another one broke off. These are the reaction control things. 16 of them, okay. Set these here. Okay, there's not 16 here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. This is 14, and there's 2 of them in a little bitty container, which is somewhere else, and that'll give me 16 of them. And apparently, there are 16 more. These are all on the tree that don't go with the service module. They go with the lunar module, which is this thing that still has a lot of parts on the trees. Be careful not to break that off. Okay. I am missing, though, missing the hinge. There's the hinge. That has broken off of the tree and is floating around. So I need that. And then there are these parts. Let me show them to you. These things here, kind of trapezoidal, rectangular shaped things. There's 8 pieces like this. 4 of these and 4 of these that hold the reaction control jets on. They have a part number, 54 and 55. I am old. I am doing actually pretty well. I'm looking for the parts that hold the reaction control jets together. I'm wondering if these are part. These look like they might be part of them. They are 54 and 55. 2 of them are missing. Okay, I've got 4 54s and 2 55s. So somewhere are 255s, and I will look through. I'm not going to mess around with this much more. I'm going to look in the little bottles of tiny parts, but I'm making pretty good progress. I've got most of the service module parts primed, and I've got the escape tower almost completed. I just need to put some doors on it. I am trying really hard to not break any of these parts. This thing got really banged around. Apparently, that's why a lot of these pieces are off of the trees or the sprues, because this got banged all over the place and they broke off. Fortunately, so far, the only part that was actually broken was the high gain antenna that I think I might have fixed. We'll see. I'm going to put the top back on this and set it aside and look for the two missing pieces of the mounting for the reaction jet. Okay, be right back. Keep putting things away. Okay, let me get the parts out here. It's 13, 14, those tiny little rocket things, little whatever they are. Yeah, those are numbered. I'm hoping that the reaction control jets that are still in the box are identical to this. I should have checked, but I didn't. Okay, this might hold the parts I need. You'll see there's lots of little parts in here. These are the two that look missing. And I think these, they have little, yep, luckily, those are these. Okay, I'm going to put these parts in here. Those are important parts for other parts of the thing. And use this. I'm going to use this as the container for these parts, these bits, until they are going to be painted. Okay, so I know these are the same as this because there's 3 of them that are not attached, and there are 3 that are not attached, so that works. These are really a pain in the butt. These are really tiny. Okay. I'm going to take them off and then show you how this all fits. These 2 halves come together, and then on either side are infinitesimally small little points into which the base of these is cemented. These are all painted the same color as, oh, hi. Yeah, let me show you in a little bit. I'll show you the part that is done. These need to be painted the pearl white, which is the same as the exterior of the service module. So I'm thinking I might actually install these onto the service module and paint them along with the exterior. And then these are painted in order to keep it in the same as the other 2 rocket nozzles that I've done. The inside is painted flat black, and the exterior is painted what's called steel, okay, which is a metallic color. You can see that these are going to be a challenge to paint because they're so tiny and there's no place to grip them. I've got a plan. I have a plan involving toothpicks and sticky tack. Yep, but we'll see. But as usual, these things are attached to a tree. Some of them are broken off. They've got little bits of the tree or the sprue still attached. The nozzles are not well formed. So they're almost as bad as the chairs from the submarine. Probably the one good thing about them is they seem to be molded as one piece. There's no seam on them. They're unseemly. The chairs are molded in the mold. Anyway, the two parts of the mold didn't line up. I'll just put it that way, which meant that the chairs had this really bad seaming. Yeah, so I need to get these off. I need to clean them up. And probably just, I'm not even sure if I'm going to try to prime them. I don't even know. They all have a bump on them like that. I think you can see it on, that looks like it's part of it, like it was intentional, because all 8 of them have this little bump on the outside. Why? I don't know. But I'm gonna have to look at the box top and see if I can see whether that was intentional or just a flaw. I don't know why there would be a bump there, but there seems to be. Okay. So I'll probably do is clean these up and cement them together so that they form one unit. That'll give me a chance to clean up the seams then. Yeah, this is just going to take more time than one would like, right? Just getting these all off and cleaned up, and then maybe painted. These, if I'll have to decide whether I'm going to try to prime them or not. I'm thinking not. I'm thinking I just am not. They're just going to blow all over the place. This goes here. And I should have attached this either this way or this way. I'm not sure. I should have attached this before I primed it. Should have done that. And I was planning to, but then I didn't. And so, yeah. I'm going to do more relaxing, sanding, cleaning these things up, getting this to fit. It's got a circle thing there. I need to look at the instructions. Second. Sorry. I'm muttering to myself here, but I'm not sure how that fits. Okay. Yeah. So this, I was checking to see the raised side. Okay. This is the top, which means that the bottom has this circle on it. It's a raised circle. It doesn't allow it to lay flat on the surface. Ugh, man. Yeah. Manufacturing flaws. Little bitty pieces. Stuff that's in the way. Container that I might use. Be right back. I'm just putting these aside so I don't have a problem. Since I'm here, this is the escape tower. Oh, the scaffolding down here, I think, if you don't get too close to it, looks okay. If you get too close to it, yeah, the seams don't, the attachment points don't line up perfectly. It was just couldn't be done. The rocket nozzle parts, I think, came out pretty well. these are where the doors go up here. And a little bit later in the stream, I'm actually going to try to install those so that this is complete. But for now, I'm going to keep it aside. Every time I move it, I'm afraid I'm going to break it. That's the noise of these little bits of plastic to which parts were attached and aren't any longer, and are really pretty just trash, but I didn't throw them away. I put them down so that they would be in the way. It's clever. There, I'll put them there where they're in the way there. Yeah, I'm just going to have to take these parts off. They're going to be sanded, and it's just, hopefully I'm not going to drop them. Yeah, what I need to do, I'm going to do each one over a container. So like when I'm doing when I'm trying to clean up like one of these, okay, if I drop it, I'm hoping it will do that, right? And not fall on the floor. See how that goes. Did I lose one already? No, there it is. Okay. Oh, yeah. Here, let's do something interesting. Sort of interesting. This is the gold foil that goes on the Lunar Excursion module. That is a bottle of paint that I knocked out. Here are samples of gold paint. I have 3. I've got this one. Yeah, very shiny gold paint. I've got this one, and I've got this one. Carefully tested on white cardboard. Which one of these looks best with this? That one's not bad. That one's pretty good. That is the most expensive of the 3. That one is a little bit too brown, maybe. Yeah, that's kind of disappointing. I was hoping that this one worked the best, but it looks like this one here comes closest to replicating. I mean, it doesn't exactly, but I think it looks the best of the 3 when matched up with the gold foil. So that's likely to be the one I'm going to end up using. I'll try that. I'm going to get an outside opinion in addition to mine, but that seems to be to use this paper towel when I take these off the tree. Hoping that as I cut them off, they just don't go flying somewhere. Pins, and in between the pin is the sprue. Now, these are going to just take forever to clean up. it was true of the submarine that probably, I'm just going to say that at least half of the process of building that model was cleaning up the plastic parts, getting rid of seams, filling in holes. Yeah, probably not half on that, but it was at least a third. This one is more than half. Just a lot of time being spent fixing manufacturing problems. What I'm wanting to do and succeeding for the most part is leaving excess plastic on these things rather than ending up with like a divot because it broke off and took out part of the piece. So even though it'll be a pain to file and sand those down to get rid of these little prongs there, and sixteen of these tiny little things. This is just going to be a real test of manual dexterity here. But they are very prominent parts of the model. They stick out on the sides of the service module. They're painted a really dark metallic color which contrasts against the white of the model itself. So yeah, they need to look good. Hatching them is going to be a chore as well. Okay, there's that. I'm going to seal that up so if I knock it over, they don't spill. And now I'm going to clean this up so that I can install it on that part. I'm going to be putting a lot of cement on here. I want it to hold very well. I'm going to be using just this flat needle file. And sandpaper, very fine sandpaper, which I very, very carefully threw onto the floor. This is what happens when the parts, in the mold don't really come out very well, is you end up with these little bits here like that. That means that the mold wasn't tight and plastic seeped between the two sides of the mold, and you end up with that little chunk. The other thing you end up with is like a ridge, the base. It's not like perfectly, I just out of the way. That was the file I was using, that when I tried to do two things at once with one hand. Yep. This is why it's so relaxing. Is because just stuff like that just keeps happening. So part of it is just being tired from being up way too late yesterday playing this new game. We're trying to reinstall Family Game Night, which is something that we did with great frequency during the pandemic. Like every week we had one. And it was always a lot of fun. We hadn't done it in a long time. Did last night, and we were playing a game and learning it as we went along. And anyway, we stayed up really late or really early, depending on your perspective. These are little nubbins of plastic from the tree that they were on, the sprue. I should decide to call it either a tree or a sprue instead of going back and forth. Make up your mind, one or the other. I'll call it the tree. This is part of the model that is not part of the Apollo. Okay, the service module was not hinged like this, I'm quite sure. Okay, but that's how the model is hinged. So I'm trying to get the piece to look decent. And this should have been attached and primed along with the rest of it, but it wasn't. And so it's not going to be. I'm not sure I want to re-spray it. But I do want to fit this together. I'm not sure how it works. Okay, the instructions show you the parts that go together, but they don't show how. So part of what I want to do is after I attach this, it's pretty clear where it goes and how it fits. There's not much option there. I want to, and the cement is done like right after break. Going to test fit some of the major parts of the service module just so I can see how they fit together, because it's really not clear exactly where this opens, okay, in relationship to the internal components, because those tanks and things that I showed you at the beginning that go inside the service module are supposed to be seen when this panel opens up. Anyway, part of what will happen is test fitting all of this to see exactly how it fits. It does. Yeah, for a part like this is surprisingly poorly done. Look at that. And there's even this one's smooth. This one has lumps on it up here where parts of the plastic adhered to it when it came out of the mold. There were a couple of places. There was one on one of the tanks, the hydrogen tank inside the service module. It had just a huge blob of plastic that attached to it. It took some sanding and filing before I finally got it so it doesn't show. So as I was saying, yeah, way more than half of the time on this model is being spent just getting the parts right. Filling in gaps, closing up seams. In this case, you can see it, but this is supposed to lay flat against the this part here. Okay, it's supposed to lay flat against that, but there are protuberances, especially one right there and a couple on the other sides that look like they're alignment pins. Okay. But there is no divot on the other side for them to insert into. So they're just in the way. They're keeping it from laying flat. That's good. Don't push down on it. Don't break this in half. That would not be good. So yeah, it's just like I'm hand machining all of these pieces so that they fit together. Or getting rid of molding flaws, or just a whole lot of things that shouldn't be an issue. Using my finger to feel for little bits that are protruding. Like this is, yeah, it's okay now. I'm going to clean it up, get down a little bit, let it dry, and then install it. And then I'll have to think about whether I'm going to reprime this or not before I paint it. Using this really fine grit paper to kind of polish it. Yeah, so it takes like 15 minutes just to get this piece in condition to be cemented into place. That's why the Apollo is taking as long as it is. And who knows how long it's going to take to clean up all those little bits, especially if I drop one on the floor and lose it and have to spend the next week looking for it. Can't tell if that's raised or below the surface. Okay, there. I'm going to get a little piece of paper towel here, get some denatured alcohol, and wipe that down because there's sanding dust on it. Let that dry, and while I'm letting that dry, yeah. So the other thing I need to do, a little counterintuitive, is this goes into this section here. This section here now has paint on it. And because it has paint on it, the cement is going to dissolve the paint and it won't adhere. So I need to take the paint off. That's why I should have put this on before I painted it, right? None of this is going to show because it's going to be underneath. Okay. That will give a clean surface. Check to see, it looks like I did get the paint off. That should give a pretty clean surface against which that part, and add here. This is, I should talk about 1960s television again or something. Mostly I've been talking about complaining about how these parts don't fit together. So you can see there's a very well-defined recess for this to go into like that. Okay. And it looks like, that should line up okay. I'm not sure if it's supposed to line up. That's where I need to test fit it, kind of, where it's supposed to line up along the edge here or line up on the interior against the ridge. Let me, before I cement this, get a sense of how that's supposed to go. This is the bottom. I'm really, wow. Yeah, that sounded worse than it was. I just dropped something into another box of stuff. Okay. Making a little bit of room here. This is the bottom, and this is where the hinges go. Okay, so this goes, it goes like this. Yeah, it must, because that's where the little tab is there. The tab is in the center up here, so that wouldn't fit. So I'm looking at this picture here. This is, once this is put in, assemble this. There. And that close. That's good. That closes like that. Supposed to anyway. Yeah. Well, test fitting, right? Okay. There's this ridge here like that, right? And what isn't clear is whether that ridge goes underneath and this sits on top of it. That's what it looks like. That's how it seems to fit, right? that this goes underneath that. Put the hinges together. No, it goes on top. Okay. Apparently, this hinge is held in place by the thing that goes around the back here. Yeah, yeah. I'm not getting a good sense of whether this goes under top or underneath. Like, and if I put this here, there's this. Yeah, it looks like if these are actually put together correctly, if this is assembled like this, there's these little cutouts on the bottom. So it looks like this goes on top, and that ridge, that shelf, fits under them. Or at least it's supposed to fit under them. You can see that there's a little slot there, which is just the right height for that. And this, if it fits correctly, just does that. Just covers. The odds of this actually fitting as nicely as it should, I'd say, are like minuscule. Virtually not going to happen. Yeah, there's one on top too. These are supposed to just sort of fit together like that. So knowing that, let me make sure that the hinge sets in here properly and that it lines up vertically. There's enough movement vertically so that if it's not just right, it could very well keep it from lining. There's just enough movement there. Nice. Now that's not helpful, is it? It's almost like this needs to be this is in place. This goes in. That fits. So let me look at how this is. At the bottom. Okay, it's lined up at the bottom. Let me put it on the top and see what happens. Sorry, there's like a 64th of an inch of play, okay, in the hinge. And these things are supposed to line up once the hinge is in place. course, the parts don't fit, right? I mean, they'll sort of fit, but they're not. I need 2 more hands there. So if I line it up on the top as opposed to the bottom, let's see what happens. Yeah, if I line it up on the top, it doesn't fit. If I move it down to the bottom of its range of motion, no, back on the top. Sorry for taking so much time doing this, but if it doesn't work, it's going to be a problem later on. Seems to want to be at the bottom, which if it's on the bottom, it raises this up a little bit. Yeah, I'm glad I'm testing this because I didn't expect there to be so much play, so much movement. Nearly as much as there is. So this needs to be lined up on the bottom of this section here, not the top. And I'm hoping that once it's all cemented and doesn't move again, that turns out to have been the correct choice. Find out, won't I? So it goes to be installed like this, and then there's that little gap, like I said, like a 64th of an inch, just enough to be a real gap in the hinge. And it looks like it's supposed to be up there. Okay, knowing that, I can go. I'm just going to go ahead and cement that in. There's no sense not doing it. A little too much on there, I think. It splishes out faster than I would have expected. I don't want big puddles of it. Okay. Again, having 4 hands would really be good. Nice even line along there. I'm going to just, in order to make sure that it adheres there, I want to put a couple alligator clips on it. And down the bottom, it is even along those. So I'm just going to clip it to hold it very tightly in place and let it set. Putting these on gently. I don't want to scratch the surface. Okay. Well, hopefully I have tested it correctly, made the right decision about the location of the hinge. Hopefully I've done that and that it will work. If not, then I've got a problem that I might or might not be able to fix later. We'll see. We'll let that dry and then I'll test it again. And I don't know, it might be just great, or there might be reason for tears. Hi, old Roger. Thanks for dropping in. I will let you know that I'm incoherent today because I stayed up way too late last night playing a game with the family. What I'm working on now, I've primed most of the parts, the big parts for the service module, having completed the interior parts. Let me just set this over there, show you that. The interior parts of the service module are all done and ready to be installed. I need to attach the doors to the escape tower. You know, I'm going to have to look at break. I meant to look at the name of the game, but then I can't remember what it was. You know, what can I say? Old, right? It's a cooperative game. You might recognize it. It's a cooperative game in which spirits of the earth possess an island and are in harmony with the people who are living there. And then Europeans, what a surprise, Europeans decide to try to colonize it. And we play as the spirits. Yes, eventually we were playing the introductory tutorial and had no idea what we were doing at the beginning. Had no idea what we were doing in terms of the cards and the gameplay. But fortunately, it was the simple tutorial version, and we actually ended up winning, right? I mean, it was, I'd say during the last probably 20% of the game, we really caught on to, and what do we need to do cooperatively in order to make it work. Each player plays a different kind of character, of spirit. Like the one I did was a lightning spirit, the spirit of the air, and did like burst damage. And some of them had really good defensive capabilities, and it was important to work really cooperatively together to plan the strategy of the movements. The randomness of the game comes with the invasion. We don't know where they're going to invade or how many of them are going to invade. And so the whole thing it's basically a territory control kind of game. You know, a lot of games are like that, but it's done in a way where the four different characteristics of the character types, there were four of us playing, had to work together to maximize our chances. Like if we were just worked independently and said, oh, I'm going to defend my little spot here, you know, and good luck blowing them up over there, it wouldn't have worked. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Is it 11:30? This is the part that I repaired earlier, and it seems to be adhering. And if it stays that way, I'll sand down the seam. The stem of the high gain antenna had broken off. and I repaired it. And then after break, I want this to set as long as I can. So it'll be near the end of the session. I'll sand that down and paint the stem, and then that'll be done as well. But what I'm faced with are these itsy bitsy little reaction control nozzles and the things to which they attach. And of course, they are very badly molded. There's mold marks all over them. I can try to take one out. They're almost as small as the chairs in the submarine, which were less of a pain, actually. But you can see that, okay, against the black background, I guess you can kind of see it, that there's these where they were attached to the trees. Those have to be sanded off. And the rim, the injection molding left like a little bit of a ridge around the rim, but basically it's sanding those things off or filing them off and then sanding it. And I got 16 of those. Yeah, it's way smaller than I expected. And if you can see it even on this picture, see how they are attached to the outside of the service module. They're very, very visible. Okay. I mean, they pop out because they're basically black against white. And so if they're not nicely done, it's going to really show as a flaw. So what I was doing here was I was installing the hinge. The service module, just show you the base of it. This is the bottom of it. This part of it here, this third of it roughly, is the part where the tanks and things go. The rest of this is hidden behind those verticals. This goes here like this. It's in like that. Sometimes it fits. Okay. Another one goes here, and then the tanks on the platforms get attached here and here, and the big long cylindrical one gets put in here. I have to test fit all that a little bit later today too. And then this thing hinges here like that, and that's what opens up and shows the inside. And then there's some detail here too. Some other additional tanks get attached here, and here. And then these little bits here probably should be, I don't know, they should be painted so that they're visible. I'll probably do that. Anyway, that's why that's sitting there, and that's why that's sitting there. I primed the parts yesterday, so they're ready for test fitting. But these little bits, I don't know. I guess what I'm going to do in this half hour, it'll probably take me that long, is I'm going to just start. I can't get anywhere until these are done. They just have to be done, regardless of how tiny and annoying they are. So I'm going to go at it. Have yet like another container on here. Okay. So I'm going to have the starting container, the file over this. So if I drop it, I hope I drop it into it and not onto the floor container. And then they go in here with the cap that closes, and that's where they're going to sit until they are installed. So there's all these little bits. There's the nozzles, 16 nozzles, and then there's these things, which are the thing to which they attach. And of course, those are so, right size, you can almost grab them. They came in halves, and they need to be cemented together, right? Held in place. And then they've got nasty seams on them. And then those will have to be filed down after it's all cemented. So I should have done these tiny little bits earlier on, maybe. I don't know. I have to admit, I just kept forgetting about them as I was working on the rest of it. Yeah. So I have to file that stuff off very carefully so as not to distort the nozzle. This is going to take quite a while. Well, thanks for dropping in. Did you have a chance to see the escape tower since it's been done? I don't know if you were on when I showed it to anybody. Let me know in chat. And if you hadn't seen it, I'll bring it out again just to show it off. Because it came out, I think it came out almost B+ in terms of quality. Okay, let me just finish this one. I've accomplished a thing. And then I'll bring it out and show it because it came out, I thought, pretty well. Yeah, I know one of these is going to end up under the workbench. I'm going to have to clear off everything on the surface and move the workbench and find it because it's going to fall off. So this is close to being done, at least as far as I can tell. Just trying to make sure that I hold it down like that, and that works. It lets me see if it's out of round anywhere, where there's still a little bit kind of hanging on. I know what I should do is I should take this 2000, I'm going to use this stuff. This stuff polishes really pretty well. I should just catch. Just these are so small, I just can't see them. I can just feel there's a little bit of a problem with that, but really see it. Okay. Let me get the escape tower. This is put on my custom mounting of sticky tack and cardboard. The reason it's in the sticky tack is that this attaches it has pins under here, and it attaches to the top of the command module. So the only thing I'm really not satisfied with, and I knew it was going to be a huge problem, is when I put this lattice work together, this trellis sort of stuff, is that, where they matched up, where the contact points were, it was really hard to even get them to adhere. And probably what should have or could have been done is I could have sanded some of these things down. But I didn't, and so they're not perfect. These sides, this was one solid piece as opposed to these things came in later, and then the ring had to fit in there. But it was very difficult to get that thing together. So a white spot there that shouldn't be there. Is that dust? I'm seeing a spot here that should be painted flat black. I might need to touch that up. Anyway, I think this came out okay, other than that one spot there that I didn't know was there, but is now. I'm going to do that. And then the seams, you can still barely see the seams along the side and up here. So I think that came out all right. And then these rocket exhaust nozzles on both sides, I think, came out okay as well. This thing here, which I'm guessing was some sort of component of the rocket, I'm not sure. This is where the doors go that open up. You can see them in the picture there. There's little doors, flaps that open up on either side of that I have to attach. But these, I was kind of pleased that they're not, I'm just looking at this and it's like, oh, there's a tiny little bit of black that needs to go there, but there is no way I'm going to attempt it. So I think it came out okay. This is one of those things where if it's, I keep saying this, display it under indirect lighting and don't let anyone get within 18 inches of it. In that case, it would actually look really quite fine. But there's that one. It's really weird. I'm not sure how that happened. I'm going to fix that right now. Okay. Because otherwise I'm going to forget about it and there'll be a problem. So I just need to get a little brush. It's black paint. I'm not even going to squeeze any out. Yeah, I'm not sure what that was all about. That's really odd. There's that little white spot. Well, now it's gone. So the only thing left to do on this is to get those doors attached. The contact points are minuscule, absolutely tiny. Thank you. Thanks for dropping in. And yeah, thanks. I will do my best to not lose these little bits. I've got 15 more to go. And that gives me great opportunity to fail. Excuse me. Okay, well, that was unexpected. I'm going to put this aside now. But thanks again. Maybe see you on Friday. Anyway, I got one of those bitty pieces done. So you can hardly see what I'm doing because you can hardly see the pieces I'm working with. As you can see there, there's just little bits of the tree from which they were detached. And I need to clean these up, so I'm going to work on this until for another 15 minutes or so, maybe get a couple more done. After the break, I'm going to do two things. One is to clean up. I'll probably do that late in the stream, that high gain antenna that was broken. I'm going to sand down the ridge where the cement is, sand that off, and paint it so that that piece will be completed. And I'm going to continue working on these. Depending on how it goes, I may glue together, cement together the two halves of the four holders, mounting brackets for the reaction control rocket nozzles here. So, just depends on how long this ends up actually taking. It could be forever, the way it's going. I'm holding it over this little bucket here because there's a good chance I'll drop it, and I'm hoping that it will fall into that and not on the floor. That is to say, I'm hoping it will fall into a place where I can find it, because I can't replace these. These are like the smallest parts of this entire model, and there are so many of them. There's 16 on the service module, and there are 16 more on the lunar module. So after this is done, we get to look forward to doing the whole thing over again. And I'm putting it on the cardboard because I can then see where there's still a protuberance. This is taking a long time. I should probably apologize for that, but it just has to be done. These parts they could not be installed the way they came off the tree. The box top says model cement is required to put this together. So far, I've used 3 different kinds of adhesives. And if you choose to paint it, it's like, how would you not paint it? It would just look terrible if it weren't painted. It'd just be all white. Be all just white with all sorts of seams showing. But, the prepping of the parts, and anyway, it's like the submarine. If you decide to paint it, what's the point if you don't? I'm repeating again, the reason I'm trying to be pretty careful with making these look good is that they are very prominent. They are a very dark color against a white background on the side of the service module. You can see them here. They stick out, right? I mean, so you're going to see them very, very clearly. And if if they don't look quite right, it's going to be very obvious. Good. 2 down, 14 to go. I haven't even started yet deciding how to hold them when I paint them. So the way I've done the other rocket nozzles is I painted the inside flat black and the outside steel, which is a very dark metallic color. And I'd like to do the same thing here, holding these to be painted, though. I mean, you can't paint the whole outside, and the whole outside has to be painted, including the little bit there, because they attach at the very, very tip. So I'm going to have to come up with some way of holding onto these from the inside. I'm going to be looking at some toothpick magic or something, to matchstick, toothpick, something to hold each one from like that. Okay, underneath through the nozzle like that, so I can paint the whole outside. So I'm actually going to paint the insides of all of these flat black first, and then do the matchstick toothpick attachment trick. And then after the paint dries on the outside, touch up the inside from where the toothpick scraped away some of the black. And you might say, well, why not paint the black afterwards? And the answer to that is, maybe that's a better idea. But the outside of the nozzle, this whole thing here, is painted the steel color. It's just the dark right on up to it. And it's easier to paint that way. I'm going to just do it the way I said it. And if it turns out to have been a bad idea, then if you ever build this model, don't do it that way. But these, where it wasn't enough, these tiny little parts, it wasn't enough to just attach it to the tree on one side. No, it had to attach on both sides, which didn't even help because 3 of them fell off anyway. But, when they come off the tree, it's either going to leave plastic on here, like it is here, where it needs to be like cleaned off, or if it breaks off too deep, it leaves a divot in the thing that would have to be filled in. I'd much rather be filing this off than trying to fill in holes, especially since I haven't found a good filler yet. But this is coming along, and I can't, this is probably leaving file marks on the nozzles, but I can't. I don't know, I tried with some fine sandpaper to polish it, but it's really next to impossible to hold it. This might be that way. I could just paint these just matte black on the outside also, but all of the other rocket nozzles are painted this steel color. I just want to keep that same kind of motif going. Complained about being tired. I should have. Good morning. Thanks for joining in. I am cleaning up minuscule, tiny, little bitty rocket nozzles. 16 of them for the reaction control jets on the side of the service module. The main reaction control, whoa, there we go. That was the kind of thing that could have been a disaster. Hold on to them and polish them. I can't, this is just not going to work. All I can do is try to get them so that the remnants of the sprue don't show. If there's little file marks on it, that will just have to be it. Almost, but not quite as small as the chairs on the submarine. So I'm going to flail away at these probably until like quarter after. Start my break a little bit late. And then finish it a little bit late as well. And I'll get as much of this done as I can today. But there are two other things that I very much want to do during this session. One is get the doors on the top of the escape tower. At least, get those done. And so the escape tower will be complete. And the other is to finish the high gain antenna, which is sitting over there. That piece had been broken and I repaired it earlier. But I need to sand down where the cement ridge is, where the seam is now from the repair, and paint it. And that'll be done. They're good. That's why this is here. So when that falls, when one of these is dropped, it is recoverable. So those two bits I really want to do. The rest of it will be just we're getting these parts ready to be finished. This is just taking a long time. So during break, I'll have to think of something to chat about while I'm filing off bits of the tree or the sprue that come along with these nozzles. Yeah, the last bit is I put it down on the cardboard here so I can check the roundness, basically. I can see against the dark background whether there's still any protuberances that haven't been filed off. And then I go over it with my thumbnail just to see if there's major problems left. It's like just so surprisingly poorly done. They're less poorly done than some things, but given, I don't know. So yeah, I'm going to keep at this for like another 15 minutes before I take a break, and then after the break, I'm going to do the doors, these little wing doors at the top of the escape tower. Do that after break before I start fading too much, and then flail away at these rocket nozzles again for a while. And the mounting brackets, again, into which they are attached, those come in two parts that have to be fit together, cemented together, and then the seams have to be filed down. They're lovely. Yeah, and I'll probably do a little bit of test fitting. It looks like they go into like slots. Service module, they fit into here. And here, that's 2 of the 4. One there and one there. Anyway, yeah. So I'm telling myself I probably should have done this like earlier on in the process of working on the service module, but I just kept working on other pieces. And at times actually forgot about these. I'd look at the instruction manual and the picture would show them, and it would be, oh, yeah, I need to get the reaction control jets done. And then I'd look and I looked in the parts box and saw just how tiny they were. Didn't quite despair, but I did do a sigh like that. That was definitely a sigh moment. And I don't know if you can even see that. I mean, I could bring the camera way down, but when I put it against the dark cardboard, I can see where there's still a little protrusion of plastic. And it's a question of, filing that off. And I'm using a file. The sandpaper doesn't work. I can't get it to the surface well enough. But they're looking okay. I mean, considering. I guess it could be worse. There could be a seam down the side of each of them on both sides instead of just these little bits of the tree that need to be filed off. I could be having to clean off a seam, both sides. That's what happened with the chairs on the submarine. They had seams that ran down the middle of the chair, and they didn't line up. The two halves of the chairs didn't even line up. So it was not just a seam, it was like an offset. It's really, those were really bad. These would be easier if they had been attached to the trees just on one side. Maybe the molds just didn't work that well if that had been done. I don't. So I'm going to get these to like B plus range again, just so that when they're painted black against and they show up against the white surface, they actually look. They don't have little bulges in places where they shouldn't be. Okay. So during break, I'm going to try to think of things to talk about while I'm doing this tedious filing. And then after break, I'm going to do the attachment of those doors. I'll do that after break before I start to fade, which I always do near the end of the stream. Okay. And then before the end of the stream, maybe like a half hour before, something like that, the cement should have set well enough to finish the high gain antenna. And that shouldn't be a whole lot of work. I need to look at these all again. What I'm concerned about is, as I'm looking at these, they're not flat on the bottom. And I'm not sure I checked all of them before I declared them finished. I think I did, but not positive. Yeah, they're not bad. That one I just finished was not flat. There was one side was higher than the others. What is that? 6 out of 16? There should be 10 left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, that's good. And then I guess what I need to do is make some decisions about paint colors and the order in which they're painted. All of these components have multiple colors of spray paint put on them. Like the outside is of everything is I'm using a pearl white, which is a little bit glossy, maybe more glossy than the actual Apollo, but it displays well. Okay, let me just say that it looks better than just the plain old white, pure white, which is the other color I had to work with. So the whole outside of this gets painted that color. The inside, some of it is painted gold. The parts that actually show when you open the hatch door to the service module, those are painted gold. And then other parts are painted kind of a grayish green, kind of like a primer color, like interiors of certain panels. And then one of them, maybe I'll show it to you later, it's really kind of odd. The rocket nozzle fits into a part that is actually removable to show some of the other interior detail. And I need to test fit that. I'm not sure how it's supposed to work. Really not. It just seems very odd. I'm finding that test fitting things has really been important. Not just on the submarine, it was very important, but it's even more important here because sometimes the parts just don't line up right. Like one thing is inside of the detail of the service module, there's a big tank that goes from top to bottom, from the top bulkhead to the bottom bulkhead, which is supposed to be installed after the whole thing is cemented together. And I am skeptical about whether that would work. You know, how do you get it in there when there isn't any clearance? So I need to test that. Like with the escape tower. Okay, I did not assemble that in the order in which the instructions said it should be done. In particular, the rocket nozzles were put in later as a later step so that I could paint the entire outside of it, the pearl white. I couldn't paint that with the rocket nozzles installed, right? Because then they would have been painted over. So they went in like as a last step. Yeah. And this is sort of the same. There's some things that just might be done out of order just for the sake of actually getting them done. Yeah, nothing. Yeah, that's why I really need to find something to chat about after the break, because how many times can I say, wow, this really is a pain and boring, cleaning off the little bits of residual plastic on the edges of the bottoms of the reaction control rockets. I think I've said it like 4 times already, and even I'm getting tired of hearing it. So I'm sure that anybody else who's listening will be saying, I wish the music were working again so that he would just shut up and let us hear the music instead of hearing him complain about how these pieces are not ready for prime time. But at least after the break, you have some things to look forward to in terms of actual assembly of stuff. And the completion of the final bit of the service module, other than the reaction control rocket nozzles. So there's that. And if that goes well, we'll have a ta-da moment again. The ta-da moment being when the escape tower is 100% completed. I'm hoping to have that ta-da moment yet today. There's not going to be a ta-da moment on Friday. On Friday, what we're going to be probably doing is finishing some of the sanding. Oh, I'm going to have to rethink the order in which this is being done. Okay. Just as I'm thinking ahead to Friday, okay, and just what can be done. I'm going to stop working on these nozzles. You're going to say, oh no, how will they ever be finished if you stop working on them? How many have I done? I've done 7. No, 8. There's 8. It's half done. Let me make sure there's 8 left. Yes. Okay, so let me show you the issue here. The issue is that the pieces that actually require tweezers to pick up Okay. So this is why I'm going to be working on these after break rather than trying to finish the last 4 nozzles, 8 nozzles. Is these are the brackets that hold the reaction control nozzles. Okay. They come in 2 parts. They go together like this. Okay. And as you can see that they don't fit that well, and there's a seam, right? So they need to be cemented together and cleaned up so that they actually fit. They don't even line up very well. As you can see here, okay, they don't even line up terribly well. So these, after they are cemented together, are going to require a fair amount of manipulation, sanding to work. No, they just don't. There's a little tab on the back. There's a tab on this one that fits into the, there's a double tab. It's on both sides. It's supposed to come together. This is the sprue is attached to the tab. So what you can see here is that they're going to require some cleaning up just in order to be cemented together. I'm then going to cement them together. Okay, once I get them to sort of fit, find out why when I put this one together like this, with the little alignment pins and everything else. Why is there this big gap there that isn't closed? Why do they? There's something interfering with the parts touching each other. Anyway, there's 8 chunks of this, one on each side. They need to be cleaned up. They need to be cemented together. I'm going to cement them. I want to do that today so that on Friday, after the cement is nicely set, I can finish them. I can clean them up. The top of this right here, where the seam is showing the worst, that is the most important part, in that that is the part that sticks out, okay? Sticks straight out from the, oh, that's why there's a little pin on either side. That's where the nozzles go. I have to be careful not to hurt those. There's a pin on either side. Yeah, I need to get those to come together better so that the seam doesn't show, and then that has to be cleaned up because that shows more than anything else. So after the break, do the doors on the escape tower, get these 4 brackets cleaned up and put together in an adequate fashion, cement them together, clip them with alligator clips or something so that they're held nicely, so that on Friday I can clean them up enough so that they're presentable. Okay, I'm going to try to take, I'm glad I talked my way through that. Otherwise, Friday would not have been as productive as it might be if I can get this done yet today. So thanks for bearing with me so far. I will try to come up with something to chat about, and I will be back in about, I don't know. I always say about 25 minutes, and it always turns out to be 35 minutes. So sometime later, I will be back working on this. See you then. Well, there we are. You never really know when I'm going to come back from break. Pretty sure that I will, but not always sure when. Yep. And I should have been better prepared, but I'm not. What I really need is more work surface. And one way to get that would be to clean up the one I've got, because it's just got stuff all over everywhere. But that's a recurring theme of Relaxing Painting with Dyson Dungeons. The recurring theme is, I really need to clean up, and then I don't. Okay. So what I've got here are the doors for the escape tower. And the way they work is, if they're can't see up close with glasses, can't. Anyway, the way they work is that, so if they're closed, they go on like that, okay? And that fits pretty well. And there's these little contact points here and here, but when they open, they're supposed to hinge, open up and hinge on those contact points. Kind of like that. The contact point is there and there. So the trick is to get those to stick on those tiny little spots. Here, down here, and up there. And I guess, if it's like that, they're open kind of like that. Yeah, that kind of works. Okay. The bottom one's pretty obvious. It's in that slot. It's right there. The top one is not so clear. It's kind of like this indentation up here, this little indent. When they open, and it's like that, though. The problem is that it's, I don't know, in the picture, they're like even, but the hinge is way back here. So that, in fact, when it opens and closes, if it were to actually hinge on the hinge, it would be kind of like that. And I think I'm going to see if I can't get it to be about like that. Yeah, there. So getting them symmetric, I don't know, it's going to be a challenge. Anyway, the only way I can think of doing it is using the contact cement, because it has to grip but give flexibility at the same time. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to try that. Just see how it goes. Get myself a little toothpick here that I can use to apply it. Get this something onto which I can squeeze some. I don't know. I'll see if I can get one on. Like they both need to adhere to this part in the center here. It doesn't take much to hold them. There doesn't need to be very much on there, but there needs to be some. The nice thing about this is that you can let it sit there for a good long time, and it doesn't dry or anything. Okay, it just stays where it is until it comes in contact with itself, and then it grabs itself. That's why it's called contact cement. In fact, sometimes the instructions for contact cements, they just let it sit for like 20 minutes or something, a really quite a long time. The thing I'm going for here is to make sure that there's some on the surface, but not so much that it will just be excess. It has to be enough there on the surface so that it can grab onto the others, but not so much that it forms a blob. Anyway, I don't know if this will work, but I think it's got the best chance. Using anything else, the model cement definitely will not work. There's not enough contact points. It doesn't grip quickly enough and hold. And anyway, it's just not the preferred solution. There, let me get this way so it doesn't end up sticking to everything in the wrong way. Suppose it much matters which side I start with. So we'll start here. That actually that actually worked. I mean, it just absolutely worked. I don't know what to say. I'm just kind of amazed that, and it's even quite symmetric. I am just I am so surprised that I am going to just go ta-da. Those are attached. They're holding on. They're not moving. They're symmetric. I am not going to take any chances. I'm going to set this aside and let it set wherever. And that stuff will harden, hopefully. And on Friday, I'll just be able to show it off. But I'm just not going to mess with it anymore. That sometimes that happens. Things just work. And I have to say that my experience has been that the contact cement has been a savior in ways. It's really been a salvation in that it works when nothing else does. Okay, now I need to clean these guys. These guys are the brackets for the rocket, the attitude control rockets. And I'm working on these rather than the nozzles right now because they're in two halves, and the halves need to be cemented together. And at the moment, they don't fit that well. They leave their, they don't, they leave a gap at the top. And I'm thinking, in looking at this, that the gap is caused, that there's a little bit of extra plastic there, so that the two halves don't come together right. And it's just tiny little bits like that that can keep the parts from meshing up. I'm going to do these like one pair at a time. Why not? Just grab one that has an in pin and one an out pin, and manipulate them until they fit well. I have to say the alignment pins, just don't help. Okay. These two, This is why some models, they just say, don't use the alignment pins. They just get in the way. And in this particular case, well, that's one of the reasons is they're both the same direction. Tweaked it away, didn't I? You're so small and my eyesight's just mediocre enough that I can't even really tell which half is which, right? Nice. There's a tab here. Each half has a tab. Great, right? Half a tab on each side. It needs to fit into a slot on the service module. Okay. These two should fit together. Yeah, and it's not a good fit. No. And the gap doesn't close. I'm thinking the alignment pins are actually a little too long. And there's a little bit of a ridge there. Anyway, yeah. So this is these tiny little parts are kind of a nuisance. You can see how it kind of rocks back and forth there. What that's telling me is that the alignment pin is a little too long, and it's keeping it from. It doesn't go all the way into the hole on the other side. So there's nothing that says I can't make them much shorter. Make them go away. It still might work. Because they don't really align. Okay. I mean, they don't. The two halves don't match up very well. I wish these were less sensitive because but they are. They show. They're really visible on the outside of the service module. So when they don't match up really well, as these are not, then they're just going to take a lot of manipulation in order to get the seams to not show. And it's still, I think what I'm going to do, and some model magazines, the book said, just get rid of the pins. You know, they're not going to line up. They get in the way. Do your best to line it up by hand. because these things are just going to be, they're going to create a gap. So there, that's gone. Let's see. It can't be any worse, right? I think what I'm going to end up doing is putting a fair amount of cement on there and hoping that it fills the gap. If not, I'll just use some sort of gap filling putty. They just slide on each other. They're just really not, they're not cooperating in any way, shape, or form. Getting them to match up. No, why? Such a gap at the very top, and that's the part right there that shows the most. That's the most obvious place on the entire thing, and where there's a gap there, that's where it's going to be. Well, these might just take a whole lot of work to get to work. So I had said that one of the things I wanted to do during break was come up with something to chat about, and I didn't. I mean, I failed at that. So I don't have anything to chat about. I could do. So what was better, the Flintstones or the Jetsons? Mm-hmm. They both had catchy theme songs. The Jetsons song was, not all that. I mean, it was okay. Basically, it just named the cast. Meet George Jetson, Jane, his wife, their boy Elroy, daughter Judy. I mean, that was pretty much it, right? The Flintstones sort of told a story. Flintstones, meet the Flintstones. What were they? They were the modern Stone Age family. Where were they from? The town of Bedrock. They were a case right out of history. Let's ride with the family down the street, courtesy of Fred's Good Feet. And then you learn how to have a yabba-do time. They had a gay old time. Back then, that that didn't mean anything other than like happy. So I think I have to say that the Flintstones theme song was just better. It told more of a story, not just listing the names of the characters, which is what the Jetsons did. So I'd say the Jetsons was kind of a mediocre theme song. The other thing about the Jetsons, and I used to complain about this when I was a kid, it was they had this house and there was no continuity, just from one episode to the next. And it's like that they change everything in their house every week. So it's like the animators just started everything over every week. They did have a robot maid. That was handy. I mean, having a maid was handy. Her name Rosie. fit. Anyway, yeah, definitely the Flintstones theme song was better. Okay, these sort of fit. I was kind of hoping I could use alligator clips to hold these together, to hold the pieces together, but I don't know if that's going to work because they're slippery. And they're not like square. Anyway, I'll see. I would like to be able to have something like hold them together. All the cement, I mean, other than my fingers. Because that's kind of hard to do. Yeah. But, there were two, they, at the time they came out, they called them adult cartoons. Like they were designed not just for kids, which is what people think of as cartoons, but that it was like the whole family could watch it and enjoy it. And the Flintstones was cool. It was based on the Honeymooners. It was actually kind of a ripoff of that whole Jackie Gleason show. So it was, fairly easy for them to do. It was very derivative in that sense. But it also made it, kind of fun because the Honeymooners was actually a really good show. And actually see reruns of it, on Saturday TV and stuff. Anyway, yeah. So the Flintstones came out, and I remember my parents saying, "Oh, it's going to be an adult cartoon." What does that mean? I don't know. It means grown-ups like us will watch it too, and we all sat around and watched the Flintstones. It was a big family thing. It was kind of fun. We got to learn the theme song because all the TV shows back then had, theme songs that sometimes went on for a good long time. And that one did. So that was anyway. I had gone so far without dropping anything, and eventually it had to. Fortunately, it landed on a black surface and didn't disappear. This is where I'd really like to have these have a rough surface texture so there was something to grip onto. Okay, so the trick is going to be to hold these together and not get cement on my fingers. Okay, because cement getting on my fingers means that it would mar the surface. And even though that could potentially be sanded out, I would just as soon not do that. So, yeah, I'm going to have to just be kind of careful in terms of the amount I put on here. I think I'm going to use the brush on cement because I can get a much thinner layer. I mean, just a real thin layer of it. You could then with the little applicator. And I want to make sure I get some across around it. And then I'm going to let it set for a bit and use it like contact cement. Mm-hmm. if I can't get them put together without getting fingerprints imprinted into the plastic. Get the parts aligned. I'm going to try an alligator clip. I'm not getting it perfect. The parts don't fit perfectly. But I think I'm getting it close enough so that it won't require too much sanding. There's a little ridge there, but it's not too bad. And I'm going to clip it. I think that'll do. I got one looking okay. Yeah, so I know this is kind of tedious, but I'm trying to get it all lined up as well as I can while it's still under pressure. The seams become very much minimized. Okay, they'll become minimized. Itty bitty little pieces. Trying to get it all lined up on multiple axes, right? Writing it around too much. Okay, I think that will do. Yeah, I needed to pay attention to that, so I didn't get to talk about it. So were there others? I think those are the only two I remember, that the Flintstones came out and then the Jetsons came out. And the Jetsons became more of a Saturday morning kids kind of show than the Flintstones did. Remember, the Flintstones stayed on prime time for a good long time, if I'm correct, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I mean, I used to like that. The Flintstones was fun. Okay, too. I got a little bit here. Up pretty well. This one is being just a little bit reluctant. Yeah, I mean, these will require some really cautious sanding and filing so that the seams aren't real obvious, because they do show right on the very outside of the service module. I mean, they're in a very highly visible place, and as such, I want them to not have big seams showing. Yeah, right now the seams are really big, but I guess they're coming along okay, especially on the top there. It'll require a little bit of manipulation. Is for the cement to ooze out a little bit and create a ridge. You think you wouldn't want that, but the ridge then can be sanded down. And when it's sanded down, it doesn't show because it fills the gap. Anyway, I wanted to get these cemented together so that on Friday I can take the time necessary to sand out the seams. Took the time to do that. And then I've got 8 more of these little rocket nozzles to go. How much time do I have left? Half an hour? Okay. So when I'm done with these, I'm going to go back to the high gain antenna, which I cemented together earlier and should be ready for its little touch-up sanding and painting. Itsy bitsy fractions of a millimeter, millimeter, that just, when it's painted a glossy color especially, end up showing. You can barely see it, can barely feel it with one's fingernail, but they're there. So try to get it as absolutely well aligned as possible, as I can't say humanly possible, but as possible for me, to get them lined so that the amount of sanding away that I need to do is minimal. There's these tiny little bits of prongs that are on there, which is supposed to be for the attachment of the rocket nozzles. Okay, well, that's about as good as I can get them. And we'll see on Friday how well that has come out here. You can see it's attached. It is pretty straight. The seam is not great. So I'm going to do my best to just sort of file it down. Very, very lightly. I don't want to put much pressure on it at all because I do not want it to break off. But I also want it to not be real obvious, right? The parts did not line up perfectly. Yeah, that's pretty good. This has a ridge on it. The nice thing about the plastic is that it's soft, so it does file fairly quickly. This side, it's pretty invisible. You still see it here. Sorry for being quiet. I'm just doing some delicate work here. I'm trying to be careful. I don't want it to break off again. The thing's supposed to be like a bracket. It folds down and folds back. It's getting close. It's almost to the point where it's don't fiddle with it. You're going to make it worse rather than better. It's almost to that point. But not quite. Take the sandpaper and just rub it real lightly, attempting to sort of polish it because it's going to be painted metallic, especially on the top and the bottom here. Okay. Well, now the seam is, wow, a little bit. There's just a little bit of distortion on there, but not bad. I have to remember what color I used. I think it was the dark aluminium. I'm pretty sure it was that. This color. Okay. And I'm going to, I can just let it sit like that. I can hold it while I paint it. Just grab a brush. This brush will do. Try to move some of this stuff out of the way. Stems and move them. I'm not even going to bother squeezing any of this out. The amount that I need will be right on the just handshake it because I'm not using very much of it. There's actually 3 shades on here. There's dark aluminium, and duraluminum. So I think it made it look pretty decent. So just in the, I don't know if you can see it, just in a little bit right there, right at the, there's more than enough paint there. Yeah, that's good. The seam does not show, at least at that angle. See a little bit on this side, but it's not anything that I can really do anything about. If you didn't know it was there or why it was there, it wouldn't be an issue. Okay. Well, that is what it is. I'm going to just put that in the water, wrap this up, and set this piece in the done parts box way over here so that it just sits there and dries and is happy to just be done. Why isn't it laying flat? I don't want it touching anything. I guess I'll have to leave it out. It's not what I wanted to do, but that's what I'll do. I'll put it away before I finish. So I still have time to do a couple more of these little rocket nozzles, so I guess I will. There's 8 more to go. So let me recap what I have accomplished today. It doesn't seem like much, does it? I got that repaired, the high gain antenna, and managed to paint it so it's done. And hopefully it'll be sturdy enough to hold up to its folding and unfolding in the bracket. I did some test fitting and got the hinge attached to the service module panel, and that the one that opens and closes. So that looks okay. We've got half of these little rocket nozzles done. I finished by getting the doors on, and they're still holding up. I'll check it one more time and show it. Finished the escape tower. It is completely done now. And I think it came out probably as a B+. I think it came out well enough to be graded as a B+ effort, which is pretty good for me. It is not a professional display level model look, but it's pretty decent. Came out kind of okay. I think, on Monday I went longer than I wanted to, because I wanted to finish some things, get some things prepped so I could prime them, and I did. They ended up getting primed. And today, I'd really like to get all of these rocket nozzles done. So I don't know, I might go again. Somebody's visiting or walking along the street. You probably can't hear our dogs bark because the filter on the microphone filters it out. But, one of our dogs was barking at something. Sometimes just they look out the window and someone's walking along the street, and it's, oh no, there's someone on our street. How dare they? At night, a couple of times, they'll see their reflection in the window. When it's dark outside and light inside, the window becomes like a little mirror. And then they really have a great time barking at themselves. Apparently, dogs are not quite smart enough to recognize themselves in mirrors, like great apes do, most humans, some cetaceans, dolphins. I mean, you can't test it with the big whales. Haven't been able to test self-recognition with like a sperm whale or even an orca. Maybe an orca they have. I know with dolphins. And some birds, like in the crow family, the really smart ones, they show us signs that they recognize their own reflection. That is, they'll see a bird in a mirror and recognize that it's them rather than a different one. That's a test of intelligence as much as it's a test of whether or not you recognize yourself in a mirror. But, some animals can and some can't, apparently. Anyway, our dogs don't. So there's that. On Friday, I'm going to be painting these little rocket nozzles and filing and sanding these rocket nozzle brackets, trying to get the seams to disappear on those, and then getting these black on the inside and steel on the outside. That'll be a 3-step process. I'm going to paint the insides of these and then get a toothpick holder or something and paint the outsides, and then turn them around and do touch up on the inside, because it's probably going to be necessary. And then I'll have 16 little bitty rocket nozzles. They will be attached quite a bit, like right near the end of the assembly of the service module, actually, because these brackets need to be attached to the service module and painted the same color as the exterior. I'm using a pearl white, sort of semi-gloss paint. They'll be painted that color, and then these will be cemented on. I may end up using the old contact cement trick again with these. I'm not sure. The problem is that, once the contact points are really tiny where these attach, and they'll be painted, and because it's really hard to keep the paint from getting on the contact points. Anyway, contact cement has turned out to work really well in a couple of very, very difficult assembly bits, like the doors, like the scaffolding kind of part of the escape module tower, and the as it turned out, the doors that are supposed to be open at the top. So far, its advantages significantly outweigh its disadvantages. I'm getting close to being done. How many are left? 4. Yeah, I think if I end up going a little bit long, that's okay. I want to make sure these are finished. Get these finished. This 2 didn't require much cleaning. This one's messy. Okay, so as I'm winding down, let me just do a plug for Dyson Dungeons. We do a Dungeons and Dragons show, which streams on Twitch with a live chat at 2 o'clock Eastern time, 3 Sundays a month. And anybody who is catching this, if you can't catch one of the shows with the live chat on a Sunday, check it out on YouTube. I think you'll find that if you like Dungeons and Dragons at all, that our show is one of the best. In terms of entertainment value, it's meant to be entertaining. And it is. Our dungeon mistress has created an amazing bespoke world. Characters are amusing. It is PG-13 rated. I mean, it's not really rated, but we keep it at that level, so it's very family friendly. We joke that our demographic is those under 7 and those over 70. It's not really true. If you're over 7 and under 70, you can still watch it and enjoy it. So I want to invite anybody who's seeing this stream to check out Dice and Dungeons, Dungeons and Dragons show. Please do that. And if you like this stream and or the Dungeons and Dragons show, be sure to tell everybody you know and strangers that you meet on the street about how wonderful it is and how they should watch it as well. And they can become followers on Twitch and sponsors on YouTube. And you can even go to patreon.com/diceanddungeons, patreon.com/diceanddungeons, and become a patron and become a supporter of Dungeons and Dragons and Dice and Dungeons in particular. And your support will go to really important stuff like buying paint for these models. And then I can explain too that this stream started as a spin-off of the D&D show because we produce our own amazing dungeon tiles, which I should show to you today, but I'm going to run out of time, so I will on Friday, that we produce on our PLA printers back here and then hand paint in feature with some regularity on our D&D show. And this stream started as, if you're going to be painting, why don't you put up a little camera? We have a cheap camera. We got a cheap microphone. We got an extra stream deck. We'll put together not a studio, but a camera on a workbench. And people can watch us produce our very own dungeon tiles. And then as it turned out, other models as well, like this Apollo. Okay, I got 2 more attitude control rocket nozzles. So as I'm recapping today, I don't think I accomplished that much, although it took up the entire time. I repaired a high gain antenna that had broken. I finished the escape tower completely by getting those little doors on, and it worked. And as I look over, they're still on. They haven't fallen off. So that's a good thing. I found all 16 attitude control rocket nozzles. I found the brackets that they attach to. I got the brackets cemented together, and they're going to sit there being cemented until Friday, at which time I will be spending a lot of time doing relaxing filing and sanding, getting those ready. Between now and Friday, thank you for the follow. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Get everybody you know to follow. It's always appreciated when people decide that this is interesting and fun to watch, and maybe even relaxing. My monologues have not been very good lately, though. I have to say that since I've been working on the Apollo, other than the times I got to talk about what it was like growing up when the space race was a real thing, and early on, there were a lot of rockets blowing up. That was always a lot of fun in the 1950s, unmanned rockets, right? Trying to get a satellite into orbit and testing different things. It was always the newsreels and those what they were, of rockets blowing up either on the launch pad or shortly after were always pretty dramatic. It was a lot more interesting and fun for kids than the successes where it just went off and disappeared, right? So, wow, boom, that was a good explosion. And you get to learn about the bunkers that people stayed in so that, when the rocket blew up, they were safe, that kind of thing. That was probably the coolest thing as a kid of a rocket launch facility was the bunkers that people got to stay in before, when things were fairly primitive, before they had these big control centers a mile or more away. They had to be closer to the action. Anyway, yeah, those were interesting times. And it was interesting to talk about them too. Maybe I'll talk more about them on Friday, even with the fear of repetition of some things I've already talked about. But I'm pretty close to finishing these. And I can't really show you how this all fits together because the things onto which they fit are on these alligator clips, but there it is. There are hopefully 16 of these things in here. Let me count them. 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 10, 16, yes, and I'm going to cap that up so that if it gets knocked over, which that's always a possibility, yeah, they stay there, and I've got 16 of them on Friday. So on Friday, I'm going to be cleaning these things up and getting them ready for painting. Actually, I might even install them. I might even put them onto the components of the service module. This should be done. Take these clips off. This is the hinge. I can test fit this again. This part goes in like that. Okay. I hope this works. This could be this. Sometimes the stream ends in bitter disappointment. It's kind of like everything was going so well until the very end, and when at the very end, then things didn't go well. Anyway, this is supposed to hinge on here like that. No, it works. Well, it did. I mean, holding it together and getting it to work at the same time. Yeah, it's a trick. There. I can hold it like that. The way this is supposed to work is this is supposed to sit on the top, and then the hinge goes there. Yeah, it kind of does. I mean, kind of anyway. And then it opens up like that. And inside here, this opens up. Then you'll see in there the components of the service module. But, other than the parts not fitting perfectly, sort of, I guess that's as good as they will get. Yeah, it works. And then these it's like on here like that, and it all fits beautifully. Not, and then there's another part that goes there, or this goes there and the other part goes there. I'm not sure which way it goes, but this once this is installed, it's supposed to hold the hinge. So you can see how, anyway, that's how it fits together. And all these pieces then, they need to be painted. The dust needs to come off of them before they're painted. So part of what I'm going to be doing on Friday is just getting these things test fitted. I have some experimentation I need to do yet with some gold paint. I had very carefully kept this thing clean. Obviously not very carefully. I had tried to keep it clean, but there's dust everywhere now. And yeah, at some point in the stream, things just start to go like that, and it's best just to stop. Just stop. Get the paper towels out, cover it up, don't mess with it anymore. There, I'm at that point. So these parts, oh, this part goes back. I can put this is my internal components of the service module box. There's all sorts of little internal components here that need to be installed at some point, but I can put the now repaired. It looks like it was broken and repaired, but the repaired high gain antenna. So these parts are in the done part box. These parts are in the trying to keep them clean enough for painting later box. These are in the sitting there waiting to be finished on Friday. And it's time to end for Wednesday. So I want to thank anybody and everybody who joined in today with Relaxing Painting with Dyson Dungeons. I'm going to be back on Friday doing stuff with the attitude control rockets, and maybe even starting a little bit of assembly of this stuff. Between now and then, I'm going to do some testing of the gold-colored paint that I need to be using on the interior components of some of the service module. If it works out, I might even paint some parts. I'm not sure, though. Probably not. I'll probably do some paint prepping by doing some masking over various components on Friday. I've gotten to spend a lot of time with masking tape lately. And I need to straighten out my brushes. I've got just really kind of a mess here. A big pile of brushes and junk and things that are using up precious space on the workbench. Sure, there's nothing on here that I need. Not being sure, I'm just going to put it down here with the rest of it just in case. Okay, I need to do some paint testing tomorrow, and then on Friday, finish up working on the attitude control rockets, paint these guys, finish these guys off and attach them, and do some more work on preparing these big pieces for painting. Like this gets painted gold on this side and green on the other side, okay? And this gets painted gold on the insides of these retaining spots, okay? And green on the other side. This is going to be painted kind of off green color as well, and then the detail there. Anyway, I'll be talking about paint color selection and things like that on Friday. Maybe get some spray painting done over the weekend and do some assembly on Monday. But on Friday, yeah, this is the kind of stuff I'm working on. It's getting pretty close to finishing the service module. I'm probably like all of next week away. So four more streams maybe, and it'll be pretty close to being done. Got it in the trash. And yeah, let me just look at this just to make sure it's still working. This, yeah, the doors are still there. This is the completed escape tower. It is done. And it is done in a satisfactory manner. It is B+ work. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. So thanks everybody who watched that happen. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that seam didn't work out as well as I had hoped, but the parts just didn't fit. Okay, so there it is. That came out okay. Thanks, everybody. See you Friday at more or less 10 for another episode of... Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you got to see that. I'm glad I showed it to you at the end. Friday, more or less 10 o'clock Eastern Time for another streaming episode of The Apollo is Slowly Coming Together with Dyson Dungeons. Thanks, everybody.